Today, two warlocks have to deal with a character that apparently is omniscient. Let's have the log throw itself on the fire. This story happened relatively recently. A guy I knew, Ryan, messaged me and said he wanted to start a D&D podcast. I know what you're thinking, but I was so keen to be a player rather than a DM that I just went with it. He said he'd sort out all the tech stuff and I just had to bring myself and a level 1 character. Ryan knew a guy who wanted to DM, but I went to high school with him and knew that he struggled with DMing, to put it mildly. So even though I wanted to be a player again, I offered to DM, seeing as I had a bit more experience. Both Ryan and DM immediately began shutting the idea down, saying, "We both have far more experience than you. You probably haven't DM'd games at our level." Okay, whatever. This is going to be fun. I knew what state the game was going to end up in, so I asked if I could invite my best friend, Sarah, to play with us. Ryan and DM said yes, and so I invited her along and prepped her in advance for how interesting the night was going to get. The DMing of this game is worthy of its own post, but we are going to focus on Ryan. Sarah and I decided to play warlocks who served the same patron. We were a bit edgy, but the plan was to have that rounded out within the first session as we became a cohesive party. My character was a loyal servant of our patron, while Sarah's character had been tricked into making her pact. We were excited for how this would pan out in roleplay. Ryan was playing a barbarian whose backstory had something about being kicked out of a clan for being too powerful. Party edginess increases. The session and the podcast recording began with us entering a town that was being ransacked by a force unknown to our characters at the time. After fighting off some kobolds, we took a long rest and began to roleplay to establish our traits. My character was very into contracts and tricking people into them, and that was the premise for how Sarah's character got involved with our patron. I began trying to get some of the townspeople to sell their souls to my patron, and a lot of them were buying it, when all of a sudden Ryan declares, "I walk into the room and tell you to stop what you're doing." I was intrigued. Did Ryan's character have some big news to share? A lead on the case? Sadly, not. Apparently, his character knew there was something amiss from outside the room and figured I was trying to scam the townspeople. I was irked by this metagaming, but I didn't want to slow down the session by spending all my time being evil, and I figured it could be a good point of roleplay tension between our characters if he knew what I was up to. Alas, things only got worse from here. The next major offense came when we were investigating the town hall. Sarah found a trap above the entrance to the building, and Ryan spotted it too. Neither of them told me about it though, and both of them stood back and let me go first. I love this kind of roleplay where you know something your character doesn't, so I walked straight in and triggered the trap, taking some damage from a boiling pot of water above the door. Ryan found it hilarious that I, the player, had been dumb enough to go in when I knew there was a trap. I think you can see the problem here. In that same town hall, I discovered that the floorboards were extremely weak, and to get back at them, I didn't tell them about it. Ryan was going into this room first until my perception check revealed the danger. At this point, he immediately told the DM that his character was not going into the room. Sarah asked Ryan why his character had suddenly stopped, and he replied, "I felt like I needed to search the floor." I point out that he had already done that with his perception check. "No, that was just me casually looking around. Now I'm searching for traps." Sarah and I began laughing about this on a separate chat and decided to just go with it since we were having a good time watching the metagaming unfold. Later, DM, who had been dealing with some pretty problematic themes already, decided to allow Ryan to simp over the mayor's daughter, saving her with his impressive strength, etc., etc. That night, Sarah and I took the first watch while Ryan was sleeping, and we made a plan to trick the mayor's daughter into signing one of my evil contracts. As soon as we said that, Ryan cut across us saying, "I wake up and attack them." I actually laughed aloud in the voice chat, thinking he was joking, but no, I was wrong. The DM simply allowed his character to wake up, apparently having eavesdropped in his sleep. Sarah and I were having such a good time of it in our private chat that I just had my character apologize and we moved on. For some strange reason, at the end of the night, we got a message from Ryan saying that the recording had got corrupted and we'd have to run the session all over again. Both Sarah and I declined, but I did offer to DM for them if they ever wanted it. Both of our characters might have been edgy, but at least we weren't omniscient. Somebody, please tell Ryan how sleeping works, because I don't know if he's ever experienced it. At least OP came into this game knowing that things were going to be interesting, and it definitely helps to have a friend who is along for the ride. I mean, having a bad DM that supports a that guy is usually a disaster, but as long as you aren't completely invested into the game, you can at least enjoy the dumpster fire. Frankly, I want to hear more about what the DM did in this story as well. What do you all think about this situation?